Hi, good evening, welcome along. For the next hour, it is all about transfers, with news from all 20 Premier League clubs on the way. Joining me, James Savundra, Dharmesh Sheth with the updates. And they include, he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world, but his time at PSG is over. Could we see Gianluigi Donnarumma in the Premier League? Jadon Sancho has a new club interested in him, but will a social media love-in by Besiktas fans lead to a move? And as Dominic Calvert-Lewin agrees to sign with a new Premier League club, will he prove an astute signing with more rewards than risk? So much to get into this evening. We're going to start with the champions Liverpool and their defence. Dharmesh, Marc Guehi to Liverpool. Yes or no, do you think?
Can I go in the middle of that
you
at
can.
the moment? Talks are ongoing between Liverpool and Crystal Palace over the signing of the England international Marc Guehi. This isn't an easy deal to do for a few reasons, hence why I can't say 100% yes or 100% no. Not least the kind of transfer fee that Crystal Palace would want compared to the transfer fee that Liverpool would be prepared to pay for Marc Guehi. But hanging over Crystal Palace is a contract situation. He has entered the final year of his contract, and you would guess that would have an impact on the price. Anyway, what Liverpool would be prepared to pay because of that contract situation. Then you've got to add what Guehi's mentality would be. It looks like a no-brainer. Crystal Palace to Liverpool, you're going to be playing for the champions. You're going to be playing Champions League football as well. But there is a World Cup in the summer. I think we're going to be talking about that a lot in the remaining days of this transfer window when we're talking about particular players who might be wanting to make a move. If he stays at Crystal Palace, he's captain. He is almost guaranteed to be playing week in, week out. Thomas Tuchel will know what he can do week in, week out. He would probably need to get assurances from Liverpool, if he was to go there, that he's going to get guaranteed game time. They probably could offer him a reasonable amount of game time simply because of the number of competitions they're in, but then Crystal Palace are in the same amount of competitions as well. So it's all going to depend on what kind of assurances he gets and whether he'd be satisfied with that because of that World Cup that's coming up after the season finishes.
Crystal Palace fans would love to have him for one more season. Look at what he's done over the course of the last year alone. When Newcastle came in, they really wanted to try and sign him. Crystal Palace wanted somewhere near £70 million. We understand now they'd take something between £35 and £40 million. And you think when they achieved what they did last season, winning their first major trophy, it's probably worth it in that way to get European football next season. But it's really important to know what Steve Parish had to say on Sunday after they lifted the Community Shield. Really interesting in this. He said there needs to be a new contract or conclusion of some kind, because for a player of that calibre to leave on a free is a problem. I think it's uncertain. I think it's very unlikely that you'd say at this stage Marc Guehi signs a new contract with Crystal Palace, because he's in a situation where a number of big clubs across Europe would love to try and sign him as a free agent next summer, and the contract for that would be very sizable. I'm not saying he's guided by money. I think he's guided by what he thinks is best for his career. They've been incredible for one another, Crystal Palace and Marc Guehi. But when Steve Parish talks about a contract or conclusion, the conclusion is he gets sold in this transfer window, because Palace can't be a club that lets somebody like that, when last year they could have got maybe 70 million for him, to leave for free next summer, just 2 years after turning down that money.
If he wanted to stay there and said, no, I'm sitting here, there's nothing Palace can do about it, is there?
There's nothing they can do about it. And when players sign these contracts, he signed a 5-year contract at Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace gave him that 5-year contract. Clearly, over the course of the last couple of years, they've been trying to extend his terms. But as a player, you can do whatever you want. He's got a contract situation whereby he can sign a new contract. He is well within his rights. It would be quite unpopular, but I think, bearing in mind what he's done for Crystal Palace, the fans would accept him if he decided to play one more season and left as a free agent. From a business point of view, total disaster for Crystal Palace. But another season of Marc Guehi, you can understand why he'd want him.
Tell us about the fact that Guehi's not the only defender that Liverpool are looking at.
Liverpool are in advanced talks to sign the Parma central defender. He's a teenager, Giovanni Leone. Now, the fee being discussed, understood to be around £25 to £30 million. Both clubs are now negotiating the final details of a potential move. He's just 18 years of age, and he's a very different profile of player to Marc Guehi because of the lack of experience he's got compared to Marc Guehi, a fully fledged England international. And it's important to note that these two deals are very separate. It's not a case of if they sign Leone, they won't sign Marc Guehi. They're independent of one another. The pursuit of Leone isn't expected to be affecting the pursuit of Marc Guehi. Ideally, Liverpool would like to sign both.
Tell us about him. How good is he?
He's got the potential to be very good. He's got a very high ceiling, but he is very inexperienced. He's only started 14 matches in Serie A, Italian football's top division. He only joined Parma from Sampdoria last summer. The fee was around €5 million, but you can see with what Liverpool are potentially going to pay in this transfer window, there's a huge amount of potential there, and his stats really do back it up, because when you rank him compared to other 18-year-olds and players below the age of 18 across Europe's top 5 divisions, he ranks extremely highly, very high up, if not the top, when it comes to headed clearance, interceptions and aerial duels. As I mentioned, he started just 14 matches in Serie A, 17 matches in total in the top division in Italy. You'd think this is a player that's been signed for the future, and you'd think a lot of the thinking here would be give him a couple of years working with Virgil van Dijk. Let's see where he's at next year, the year after. Is he ready to step into the shoes of Virgil van Dijk and the other defenders that Liverpool have right now? I don't think you'd see him play a huge number of minutes in the Premier League this season if he was to sign, but he's a player with a huge amount of potential, and Liverpool want to get him now ahead of other clubs. OK,
so whether he plays minutes or not, Dharmesh, Liverpool are talking about bringing centre-backs into the club. What does that mean for Ibrahima Konate?
Again, this looks like a pretty complex situation as well, as far as Liverpool are concerned. It looks like at this moment in time, Ibrahima Konate and Virgil van Dijk would be the first choice centre-back partnership at Liverpool. They were together for the majority of last season, and Liverpool won the Premier League title. Leone, as James was alluding to there, seems to be one for the future. He can play a number of games as a young player, but learning off the likes of Konate and Virgil van Dijk. However, we've been talking about Marc Guehi and how his situation has been complicated by his contract situation. The same can be said for Ibrahima Konate, because he too has entered the final year of his contract at Anfield. They have had talks, Liverpool, with Konate and his representatives over a new deal. So far, those talks have failed to find a resolution. So the question now is, are Liverpool prepared to allow him to leave for free next summer, or would they consider offers for Ibrahima Konate if Marc Guehi and Leone were both to come to Anfield? But as it stands, our information is that Liverpool have no intention of selling Ibrahima Konate in this transfer window. The other possibility, when you look at the contract situations of both Guehi and Konate, if Guehi feels, well, I know I'm guaranteed first-team football for the rest of the season at Palace, he could stay at Palace. This might be unpopular with Steve Parish, I know, but he could stay at Palace and is within his rights to do so, as James mentioned. And he leaves for free next summer, possibly to Liverpool. Konate stays at Liverpool, sees out the remainder of his contract, and then leaves for another club for free. Because if Liverpool were to go into the market and bring in Marc Guehi for £35 to £40 million, which we think is the valuation, and Ibrahima Konate remains at the club but doesn't sign a new contract, then they're going to be bringing in a player for relatively big money and losing their first-choice central defender next summer for no money at all. It just feels like at this stage that Marc Guehi is key to everything that is going to happen with regard to the central defensive department at Liverpool. Whatever he decides and whatever Liverpool decide with Palace is going to dictate what happens to the rest.
Do you know what? Arne Slot is going to get asked some questions, isn't he, in his media conference tomorrow. We will bring that to you, 9 o'clock, with us, Sky Sports News. Right, we're going to talk Manchester United now. So, Benjamin Sesko is in. What does that mean for Rasmus Højlund, Dharmesh?
It's not good news if he wants to stay at Manchester United. AC Milan have held positive talks with Manchester United over the signing of Rasmus Højlund. As yet, no agreement between the clubs. Now, significantly, we're told that Højlund himself has yet to decide if Milan is the right place for him to move to. And as a result of that, while these talks are going on between the two clubs, Milan are now talking to Højlund's representatives as well, just to find out that the player definitely does want to join. Because there's no point Milan completing a deal over the next week or two and spending all of that time trying to get Rasmus Højlund if at the end of that agreement he says, actually, I don't want to come. They need to know that he's going to come for them to advance on those talks with Manchester United. As far as Milan are concerned, their preference is to have a season-long loan plus an option to buy at the end of the season. Manchester United, we know, he's now one of those players who they are listening to offers for, would prefer a permanent deal or at least a permanent element attached to the loan. Now, they would consider bids of around £40 million. That can come in two forms. The permanent deal straight away, here's £40 million, or a deal that's worth £40 million, away you go. You're no longer a Manchester United player. Or there's a loan fee involved for the season, which would be about £5 or £6 million, you would think, followed by an option price that they would pay in the summer, next summer, of around 35 or 34 million pounds, hence getting them up to that 40 million pounds. So it is still one that is up in the air at the moment, but I think it's going to be dictated by Rasmus Højlund. We're talking about Marc Guehi before, holding the cards and he can do what he wants. Manchester United can say till they're blue to him, you're not going to get game time, but it's going to be up to him whether he wants to move or not.
Yeah, he knows they don't want him. He's got to go, surely. James, we think Højlund's going to go. We've been speaking about all the others who are going for the exits. Any developments today?
These players have been given a long period of time to try and explore moves away from Old Trafford, but so far it's only Marcus Rashford who's been able to successfully find his way out of Old Trafford. He's moved to Barcelona on loan until the end of the season. Alejandro Garnacho, Tiro Malacia, Jadon Sancho, Antony still exploring moves away. A bit of an update when it comes to Jadon Sancho. There's been plenty of interest in him this summer, nothing concrete, but Besiktas, the latest club to have shown an interest in signing Sancho. The club's president is quoted as saying they will do their best to sign him if Sancho wants to join. And what we've seen back on the back of this is that Besiktas fans, now they see that Sancho is a target, have taken to social media to convince Sancho to join them. They've left more than 5 million comments under his most recent Instagram post. He won't have not seen that, can he? You can't avoid that. Come to Besiktas. Come to Besiktas at Sancho. Let's see what happens here. There's no concrete offer there right now. But what this would do if he joined Besiktas, it would end quite an unsavoury chapter at Manchester United, which actually started with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who signed him in 2021 for around £72 million from Borussia Dortmund. He is now the manager of Besiktas. And how much would Manchester United love it if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer came in with a decent offer to get Jadon Sancho off the wage bill, get a fee from him, because it has been a really difficult chapter for Jadon Sancho and Manchester United. It's not worked out for a number of different reasons. Borussia Dortmund remain interested in signing him again, but there's no agreement yet with the club or the player. Clubs in Italy and Saudi Arabia have also looked at the move. You'd think there would have to be a compromise from Jadon Sancho when it comes to wages for any permanent move. In terms of the other deals, just quickly, Alejandro Garnacho, United are expecting Chelsea to come in with a formal offer. We know United want around £50 million. Chelsea probably don't want to pay that much. And Real Betis are finding it difficult at the moment to get the finances to try and sign Antony permanently. Had a very successful second half of last season on loan at Real Betis. I think they'd like us to do a loan deal. United really want to do a permanent one.
Dharmesh, United trying to offload these players, but are they looking at bringing anybody else in?
Yes, I think, look, we know about the interest in the Brighton midfielder Carlos Baleba. They haven't made any official contact club to club yet. That's because, as James was mentioning there, the focus has been on sales. The focus has been on sales before the Šeško deal and after. And initially we thought, right, they need to sell before they can bring Šeško in. The messaging has changed slightly in that they need assurances before the end of the window that some sales are going to happen, because you can't dictate the timing of when a player is going to become available. So, for example, the Šeško deal presented itself at that time. And just because United hadn't made any sales before that Šeško deal, aside of the Rashford deal, they knew they had to do that deal then, because in the background, they know that they're working on these sales already. But it's understood that if a market opportunity does present itself with Carlos Baleba, United want to be in a position where they can act on it. Now, as I mentioned, sales, yes, but having that assurance that those sales are going to come at some point in this window. Having said all of that, this is Brighton we're talking about, and immediately this is going to be a very, 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 that's 4 verys, difficult deal to do.
I struggle to see this deal happening. I really do.
Brighton don't want to sell. They've got no intention of selling, and they are more significantly, under no pressure to sell. That's because Balib's got 3 years left on his contract. They've got an option for a further year, and they probably look at Baleba as making more progress at this stage of his career than Moises Caicedo had done when he was at Brighton. Moises Caicedo ended up going for £115 million to Chelsea. Brighton will probably start valuing Baleba in and around that figure, you would think. So with him having 3 years left on his contract still, going to be very, very hard.
Absolutely. Well, we can see Manchester United in action this weekend. What a game. First Super Sunday of the new season. Man United against Arsenal, live, Sky Sports Premier League at 4 o'clock. Right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, PSG and Gianluigi Donnarumma are at odds. One of the world's best goalkeepers is now available. Could he be on the way to the Premier League? Well, he just might. We'll discuss him and all the rest of the transfers next here on The Transfer Show. Right, we're going to talk goalkeepers. Gianluigi Donnarumma to Manchester City is the rumour. That can't happen, can it, Darmesh?
Don't rule anything out. I mean, this has come out of the blue, like, in the last week or so. And I think a number of clubs in Europe have been on high alert now that they know Gianluigi Donnarumma is available. This is an interesting situation for a number of reasons. Tonight's game, PSG against Tottenham Hotspur in the Super Cup final. We found out yesterday, Donnarumma not part of that squad, completely omitted from that squad. And it was a decision that was made by the head coach, Luis Enrique, a decision made after a new contract for Donnarumma could not be agreed. And the quotes from his Instagram is very telling. Unfortunately, someone has decided that I can no longer be part of the group and contribute to the team's success. I am disappointed and disheartened. A thinly veiled message, so we say, towards Luis Enrique. Now, because he's only got 1 year left on his contract, that adds another complication. So some clubs who are interested in Donnarumma will hear PSG saying, well, it's 35 to 40 million euros, but they'll think, well, in 4 months' time, for a club outside France, they can start negotiating with Donnarumma and his representatives over a pre-contract agreement to come for free next summer. So what happens now? Some clubs may wish to wait until next summer, which Donnarumma will say, well, the ball's in your court now, PSG. But PSG have got an ace card as well because the World Cup's at the end of the season. Donnarumma needs to play regular first-team football to make sure he's the number one choice for Italy at that World Cup. You mentioned Manchester City. They've kept an eye on the situation, as have Manchester United kept an eye on the situation. However, as it stands, we're told no club-to-club contact from either of those clubs to PSG, no club-to-representatives contact from either of those clubs to Donnarumma's people. So where does that leave it? Manchester United, at the moment, have got Andre Onana, Altay Bayindir and Tom Heaton. It looks pretty full. Manchester City, Stefan Ortega is still at the club. Ederson is there, and they've just signed James Trafford. So where does it leave it?
Well, it's a really interesting situation at Manchester City because I think there were some question marks over the course of the last few weeks about who the number one is going to be at Man City this season. Well, it's our understanding that they want Ederson to stay, and Ederson is the number one at Manchester City, which is quite interesting in itself because they have one pre-season match ahead of the start of the new season. They take on Wolves this weekend. James Trafford played 45 minutes. Ederson played 45 minutes. James Trafford back at Manchester City after being really, really good at Burnley, getting back into the Premier League. No formal approaches right now for Ederson. You have to wonder what James Trafford's thinking right now, seeing some of these links to Donnarumma, by the way, after just signing when he could have potentially gone to Newcastle, of course. Now, there's no concrete offers on the table for Ederson. We know there's plenty of interest. We know there has been a long-standing interest from the Turkish Super League and from the Saudi Pro League as well. But if an offer does come in for Ederson in this transfer window, then City will have a decision to make because he's got 1 year left in his contract. Now, if Ederson was allowed to leave, then we understand they would be looking for a replacement. It wouldn't be a case of Ortega and Trafford stay to fight out for the number one jersey. We understand they would be looking for a new goalkeeper. Donnarumma likely to be one of the names on that shortlist. We spoke to Julian Laurent earlier today on Sky Sports News, and Laurent said he wasn't so sure about the links between Donnarumma and Manchester City.
He's not really a Pep Guardiola type of goalkeeper or type of player. Like I've said before, his distribution is not good, and that's also why PSG were happy to go for somebody much better on the ball than Donnarumma. If you are a goalkeeper for Pep Guardiola, ask Joe Hart, you need to be very good on the ball, which is not the case of Donnarumma. And then there's crosses. If you want to do well in the Premier League, you need to be good in the air, good on crosses, good on corners, which again, it's not him. He doesn't come out on corners or crosses. So this is the truth. They are in contact with the club, with PSG and with the entourage of Donnarumma. But for me, I'm just amazed because it doesn't make much sense.
I'm with him. It doesn't look like or feel like a Manchester City type goalkeeper.
I mean, he makes a number of good points there. Just generally on this deal, though, this really smells of a bit of brinkmanship that's going to happen. 19 days from now, at this time, the transfer window is closed. It shuts at 7 p.m. on September the 1st, 19 days from now. That is not a lot of time to get a big deal like this one done. So the later this goes in the window, someone is going to have to blink first. Who is it going to be? Because both sides have got an ace up their sleeve. PSG will point towards Donnarumma and say, you need to play. There's a World Cup. He says, I'm not going to be forced out. I will decide where I need to be because this is my future and you've decided that you no longer want me. So this is what I'm going to do. However, PSG, for their part, the negative on their part, he's earning big money. Some people are saying over £300,000 a week. It wouldn't surprise me that towards the end of this transfer window, there might even be a halfway house whereby Donnarumma goes on loan. And people will say, well, he's only got a year left on his contract. How can he go on loan? Well, he could, because there wouldn't be a transfer fee involved. There might be a loan fee involved, but PSG, more importantly, would get those wages off the books. And if they were to find a club who would pay all of Donnarumma's wages, then you're looking at a 15 to 17 million pound saving, regardless of what happens with the transfer fee. Clearly, PSG's dream scenario, 40 million euros, all the wages paid, we're making lots of money. But he's not going to make it that easy for them because he needs to make sure that the club he goes to is the right one. At the moment, it feels like it's only the Premier League club that could do this deal. That is the noises that are coming out from Donnarumma's camp. They are saying it's probably those kind of clubs that can afford this deal. But if you start bringing in a loan deal into this equation, then does that invite more than just Premier League clubs into the mix?
Right, thanks, Thomas. Right, we've got an update on Marc Guehi. What have you got, Jack?
Yeah, this has come from our chief correspondent, Kaveh Solokol, and he says it's looking unlikely at this moment in time, this evening, that Marc Guehi will stay at Crystal Palace. It looks like Marc Guehi will stay at Crystal Palace and leave on a free transfer next summer.
Goodness.
Liverpool, as we've been reporting, have held talks about signing Marc Guehi, but at this moment in time, there is a gap in valuation. Clearly, this could change over the course of the next few days in this transfer window. From a Palace perspective, they do not want to let their captain go on the cheap. Liverpool, on the other hand, know they could get him for free next summer. There'll be plenty of competition to sign him next summer. But Liverpool are thinking, why do we want to spend this sort of money when we can get him for absolutely free? Clearly, there'll be a big signing-on fee, there'll be big wages, but they can get him for free next summer. This can obviously change, and things change so quickly in a transfer window. But at this moment in time, Marc Guehi, he's not been pushing for a move. He's not been agitating for a move. He's happy to stay at Palace and play in Europe for Crystal Palace. If Palace were able to agree a deal with Liverpool, then he would be happy to talk to them. But that has not happened right now. And Marc Guehi is in a situation where he is well aware there's a World Cup coming up next summer, as we've discussed, and there are multiple huge clubs in Premier League and in Europe that are aware that he is available as a free agent next summer if he doesn't sign a contract with Crystal Palace and he doesn't get a move this summer.
Ramesh, does that...
Brinkmanship.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that
like
what you said earlier, the fact that he's not guaranteed playing time
what I would say as
Liverpool.
well, this feels like brinkmanship as well, because if this news is coming out that he's likely to stay, isn't that almost a message to any interested parties? Well, he'll be happy to talk to them if they can agree a deal, but they can't agree a deal. So for now, he's staying here and he'll leave on a free transfer. That's clear that's what's going to happen because he's not going to sign a new contract at Crystal Palace. But it's almost telling other clubs, we have to stick to our pricing on this as far as Crystal Palace are concerned. They need to maximise the transfer fee they can get for Marc Guehi because the later it goes in this transfer window, interested clubs will spot an opportunity. If they can get Marc Guehi to be very, very interested and committed to going to that club, part of that battle is done, and then Crystal Palace will then have a decision to make. Right, Guehi actually does want to go. Are we going to have to now compromise on this price? This is the danger when a player reaches the final year of his contract. That's the danger that PSG and Donnarumma have got at the moment, and it looks like that Crystal Palace and Marc Guehi have got as well.
Goodness me. Got to love the transfer window. Right. Now, when we come back, we're going to talk Rodrigo Muniz. Where will he play his football next season? Fulham, Atalanta, or somewhere else? We'll talk about that next. See you in a moment.
Hi there, welcome back to the Transfer Show. Now it's time to go around all 20 Premier League clubs. Dharmesh, where's the best place to start?
Oh, look, we've already revealed it. We'll start at Arsenal, James. The focus at Arsenal is on sales. Offers will be considered for the likes of Zinchenko, Vieira, Lokonga and Reece Nelson.
Aston Villa remain interested in another deal for PSG's Marco Asensio.
Bournemouth have completed the signing of defender Bafode Diakite from Lille in a deal worth £34.3 million.
Brentford's proposed deal to sign Dango Ouattara is not expected to progress until Bournemouth find a replacement for the forward.
Manchester United have not had any official contact with Brighton for midfielder Carlos Biliba.
Burnley have more than 40 senior players on their books, so incomings will have to be balanced with outgoings.
Manchester United are expecting a formal offer from Chelsea for Alejandro Garnacho. United value Garnacho at £50 million.
And this just into us in the last few moments. There remains a gap in the valuation between Liverpool and Crystal Palace over Marc Guehi.
Everton currently unwilling to meet Leicester's demands for Abdul Fatowu. There is a gap in valuation. Everton considering other options.
Fulham have been quiet so far this summer. They're willing to pay a club record fee to sign Shakhtar Donetsk winger Kevin. There is still a significant gap in valuation.
Leeds United have agreed a deal in principle to sign Dominic Calvert-Lewin. The former Everton striker is a free agent.
Liverpool are in advanced talks with Parma for teenage centre-back Giovanni Leone. The fee under discussion is understood to be between 25 to 30 million pounds.
Manchester City want Ederson to stay at the club and remain their number one keeper amid links with PSG's Gianluigi Donnarumma.
AC Milan have held positive talks with Manchester United over the signing of striker Rasmus Højlund. Højlund himself has yet to decide if Milan is the right move for him.
Newcastle United target Johan Wissa has been training away from the first team squad at Brentford.
Nottingham Forest are deciding whether to go back in for Ipswich Town forward Amari Hutchinson or move on to other targets. Ipswich have no intention to sell Hutchinson and value him higher than £35 million.
Sunderland teenager Tom Lavery has joined Northern Irish side Cliftonville on a season-long loan.
Tottenham in action against PSG in the Super Cup shortly. They remain interested in Crystal Palace's Ibera Eza. He has been amongst their top number 10 targets this summer.
West Ham United yet to return with an improved offer for Southampton midfielder Mateus Fernandes. An opening bid of £30 million was rejected by Southampton. They want closer to £50 million.
Wolves summer signing Fer Lopez says he's not joined the club to replace Mateus Cunha. The attacking midfielder arrived from Celta Vigo in June and says he will be playing a different role to the Brazilian, who's now moved to Manchester United.
Yes, to play everyone saw it last season, but I think that I don't come here to replace anyone. First of all, I think we're different players. I like to play like we play in different positions. I like to play more where Sarabia played last year. But yeah, I think I don't come to replace anyone. I just try to. My main goal is to create chances and create goal-scoring opportunities for the team and help the team win games. I think that's the main thing.
So will Lopez feature in Wolves' first game of the season? They get underway on Saturday at home against Manchester City. You can see it, Sky Sports Premier League from 5 o'clock. Right, we're going to talk Johan Wissa and Newcastle. It's going to happen, Dharmesh?
If he has his way and if Newcastle have their way, yes, it will happen, but a lot to get through before that does actually materialise. As far as today is concerned, we think that Johan Wissa was training away from the first team squad at Brentford. His representatives, as we have been reporting, are in the UK. They've been in dialogue with the hierarchy at Brentford, we're told, over the next steps. Wissa now kind of in a holding pattern. He's just waiting for Brentford to find replacements before any move to Newcastle United can come to fruition. It's a bit like a chain when you're buying a house, actually, because he's waiting for Brentford to get a replacement. One of the replacements that they want to bring in for Brian Mbeumo is Ouattara from Bournemouth, but Bournemouth don't want to lose Ouattara until they bring in a replacement. Sure. So if one little link of that chain falls away, when you're trying to buy a house, it's the same thing, James. Now, his feeling is unchanged. As I've mentioned before, he wants to go to Newcastle and he's got no intention of playing for Brentford again.
Right, OK. Aston Villa. We're reporting that they're trying to bring Marco Asensio back. Does that clear the way for Jacob Ramsey to go to Newcastle?
Potentially. One thing we know that Villa are likely to need to make a sale in this transfer window. Earlier on in the summer, they were fined by UEFA for breaching their financial rules, and it means they need to come out of this summer transfer window with a profit. They've just signed Evan Gassond as well, a deal worth around £25 million, I think. So Newcastle have been in talks around signing Jacob Ramsey. He's been a long-term target. No formal offer as of yet. Villa don't want to sell Ramsey, and they've offered him a new contract, but he's got 2 years left on his deal there. But it feels like he could be the one to potentially go if there are to be sales. There has been interest in the likes of Ollie Watkins and John McGinn. They're considered not for sale. The Villa bosses want to try and extend his time at the club. He's an academy graduate. But of course, as an academy graduate, any money they get from him would count as pure profit. This deal for Marco Asensio, really interesting. I thought he was brilliant at the back end of last season. No talks between the two clubs yet. Villa are looking at their forward options in this market. He was so impressive in the second half of last season. Still a PSG player. Doesn't seem to be in their plans whatsoever. He's not even in the squad for their game against Tottenham this evening.
Dharmesh, let's talk Fulham. Not spent a bean, but that might change. Tell us why.
Yeah, they're willing to pay a club record fee for the Shakhtar Donetsk forward, Kevin.
From Brazil.
From Brazil.
Kevin.
We told you on Monday that the clubs had held talks. So they do want the player. They're prepared to go beyond the £34 million record that they paid Arsenal for Emile Smith-Rowe last summer. However, even that might not be enough to tempt Shakhtar to sell, because we think that they want around 3 times the £15 million that they paid Palmeiras 18 months ago. So still a significant gap in valuation. But while they're chasing him, you would think that the reason that they are is because there's a lot of movement potentially regarding Rodrigo Muniz. Atalanta have made an offer worth £34.5 million for Muniz. Muniz himself is understood to be keen on the move. Fulham want him to stay. They will find it difficult to let him go without finding an adequate replacement, and they're finding it quite difficult to sort out this deal with Kevin at the moment. Muniz has got a year left on his contract, but significantly, which is not the case with Konate and Guehi that we've spoken about before, there's an option to extend that for a further year.
Do you know how old Kevin is?
In his early 20s,
Oh,
mate.
he's not a
Just
teenager.
put me on the spot.
He's 22 and he's only scored 10 professional goals before this season. It just shows you the crazy amount of money.
He wanted to do a gag. Let him do his gag.
Do the gag.
No, I've done it now. No, we'll move on. Let's talk Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Tell us about this nearly there at Leeds.
Yeah, an agreement is there in principle. It's been reported elsewhere that he's having a medical today. His contract expired at Everton in June. We've spoken to Daniel Farkas today. In an interview we'll bring to you on Sky Sports News shortly. He says the squad are not ready for the Premier League and they need more attacking signings. This may help. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, at his very best, is a brilliant striker. Unfortunately for Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Everton, we've not seen that over the course of the last few years. In his best season, 16 goals in a Premier League season. 16 goals this season could keep Leeds in the Premier League. Of course, we're a long way off from where Dominic Calvert-Lewin was all those years ago when he was England's number 2 behind Harry Kane. His last Premier League start came back in January, played 26 matches in the Premier League last season, half of them starts. It's a gamble, but if it pays off for Leeds, it'll be significant wages, you'd think, or it may be more of a pay-as-you-play deal, which we've seen with Callum Wilson at West Ham, more so. Then this could be money worth spending. Yeah, we will see. All right, we've got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk Marcus Rashford, who's had a right go at Manchester United, which is interesting because, remember, he's only joined Barcelona on an initial loan. We'll talk about that next. See you in a moment.
Last part of the transfer show already. We're going to talk Bournemouth now, and there's been a deal. James, tell us.
Yes, they signed a centre-back, Bafodé Diakité from Lille, an expensive deal. It's the second most expensive deal in their history, in total worth around £35 million. Only Evan Nielsen has cost Bournemouth more. He links straight up with Andoni Iraola's side. They face Liverpool in the Friday Night Football live on Sky Sports. We wait to see whether or not he'll play a part, because you'd think Bournemouth would want him to, because of the departures they've seen over the course of the last few weeks. He'll wear the number 18 shirt, and he comes in at a time where Ilya Zabani has just gone to Paris Saint-Germain.
Let's talk about those departures then, because Bournemouth have sold over £150 million worth of talent this summer. Proof that their plan's working, no doubt. But have they let too much talent go? Well, Henry Winter joined Dharmesh on the Transfer Talk podcast earlier and said this.
But I think it also shows something about the excellence, the culture of excellence at the club, the player development qualities, which will obviously attract others. The fact that Milos Kerkez is now at what, a 40 million quid fullback on the back of a brilliant season at Bournemouth under Iraola. Dean Howson is he's 20, is he? I mean, you know, what an accomplished player he is, going for 50 million. I mean, I had the great pleasure of interviewing Zabani last season or the season before. Very likeable, responsibility taking individual, as a lot of the Ukrainians are, very aware of the world as well as his own sort of professional world. And again, you know, sort of good luck to him. But I don't detect amongst Bournemouth fans any particular doom and gloom. I think probably pride in their recruitment, pride in their player development in terms of the coaching that the players have absorbed and improved under Iraola, and the excitement of seeing another good player coming in, other good players coming in.
See, this is fascinating for me. Does it make Bournemouth more attractive that these players have come in and then gone? Or are they jeopardising actually progressing as a club and getting into Europe and challenging further up the league?
I think this is two ways of looking at this, because £150 million, as you mentioned, in those sales. But you've seen players come in like Howson, Kerkez and Zabani, and they've moved on to clubs like Liverpool, Real Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain. So if you're a player and you're deciding whether you want to go to Bournemouth or not, on the one hand, you're thinking, well, they sell all their best players. Why would I want to go there? What is their ambition? But from a personal ambition perspective, if you're not getting that move to a massive club, with due respect to Bournemouth, straight away, you could think, well, hold on, they've got this record of bringing in players and they sell them to some of the biggest clubs in the world. Why do we not join Bournemouth? Because then we might have that opportunity to be nurtured in a way and coached in a way that's going to make us attractive to the biggest clubs in the world. So I personally think, because of the way they scout and the way they recruit, I think they very rarely leave themselves short.
Do you think Bournemouth fans would agree with that, though?
I think they'll be delighted with what they were able to do last season with these players. It was the most Premier League points they've ever picked up, the joint highest league position in their history. I think there will be the fear, because when you lose three members of your back line and the goalkeeper was there last season, yes, they replaced the left-back, they've now got a centre-back in, and they've got the goalkeeper in the form of Petrovic, but clearly at this moment in time they look weaker than they did last season. But for Bournemouth, they want to be able to continue attracting players like this, and the only way they do that is by, clearly these players will have aspirations of playing in the Premier League, but a number of these players, we see where Howson's gone. He's gone to Real Madrid, Kerkez has gone to Liverpool, Zabani gone to the Champions League winners. These players and the representatives of these players want to be able to see they can get in the Premier League at Bournemouth, but if they do well and they hit their targets, and by them hitting their targets, Bournemouth are hitting their targets in terms of where they're finishing in the Premier League, then they'll get the move and there won't be resistance from the club. And if the market value is there, clubs are willing to pay it, they will not stand in their way. That is why Bournemouth is becoming more attractive than potentially other clubs right now in the Premier League, who make it difficult for the players to leave when other teams come in with big money.
Fascinating. Right. We'll talk more about that as the window progresses. We've got to talk Marcus Rashford now. Now, he's been speaking after completing his loan move from Manchester United to Barcelona. This is what he said on the Rest is Football podcast, and trust me, he has not held back.
At times, I feel like United have just been, we're hungry to win, so we'll always try to, to adapt and to sign players that fit this system. But, it's reactionary. If your direction's always changing, you can't expect to be able to win the league. People say we've been in a transition for years, to be in a transition, you have to start the transition. So it's like the actual transition's not started yet. So like when Liverpool went through this, they got Klopp, they stuck with him. They didn't win in the beginning.
True.
Do you know what I mean? People only remember his final few years when he was, competing with City and winning the biggest trophies. Didn't win in the beginning.
Really tough time.
So it's like, to start a transition, you have to make a plan and stick to it. I feel like we've had that many different managers and different ideas and different like strategies in order to win. You end up in the middle of, you end up in no man's land.
No man's land. James, has he got a point?
I'm not sure he necessarily does, because I think United have given the managers that he's had a decent period of time to try and turn things around. Erik ten Hag got 2 and a bit seasons. Ruben Amorim has been given time now. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had a really long period of time. And
but you've just proven his point.
Window.
You keep naming different managers. That's his point.
But they got enough time to show themselves and be given back in the transfer market. All those managers were, and things didn't work out. And by the way, Marcus Rashford didn't cover himself in much glory over the course of the last few years. Had a great first season under Erik ten Hag, but didn't necessarily perform, didn't necessarily train at the level required. So for Marcus Rashford, he's only there on loan at the moment. He'll have to return to the football club because no one wants to buy Marcus Rashford right now.
I think he has a point in one way, in that since David Gill and Sir Alex Ferguson left the club, they have gone through a number of managers, but without a proper structure. Now it seems people are saying United have always been in transition. You can only be in transition when the transition starts. It feels this time that I know we keep saying it feels different this time, but this time there is a structure in place. Manchester United have got a technical director, they've got a sporting director, they've got a recruitment team, whereby they're all working together, and they've said to Ruben Amorim, effectively, you are the guy. Any other manager of a big club, you finish 15th in the league, you're in danger of losing your job.
Yeah.
He was never in danger of losing his job because they knew that the problems that Manchester United have been built up over a number of years, and a squad that effectively has been a mishmash of a number of managers. And Ruben Amorim has inherited all of that. And now it's got to the point where we're talking about departures and Manchester United not being able to sell well, but maybe they're thinking, is now the time just to say, we've got to move on. If we make the loss and we take the hit, because Manchester United need to start again, and now the transition will begin.
If they finish 15th this season, does Amorim get sacked and we are once again going in a different direction at Manchester United?
I think he'll be under pressure as Manchester United manager. Of course, 15th is not going to be anywhere near good enough for Ruben Amorim. It just depends whether, and it's churlish to say if you finish 15th and you've made progress or not, but it will all depend on what happens during the season, because there are different competitions, there are different ways, there are different... I don't know what's going to happen. Are there going to be players injured? Are they going to give him that slack? We just don't know at the moment. It's very hard to predict that.
James, are you surprised that a player on loan, has said what he said?
A player on loan who hasn't shown anything yet at Barcelona either. We've not seen him in a Barcelona shirt. I'm surprised when he's still contracted to Manchester United that he'd make comments like that when he has played a role in United's demise over the course of the last few years. It's not just been on Marcus Rashford, but he's been a figurehead at the football club and he's not performing at the level which has helped Ruben Amorim and Manchester United get back to the level they need to be at.
Absolutely fascinating. Right, we've got transfers. Good morning transfers coming up at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Good morning transfer talk at midday. And of course, transfer show back 5 and 7 tomorrow. Asmir Begovic, the guest. Marc Guehi, no doubt, will be spoken about then. But he's coming up next on Sky Sports News.